I'm just gonna play this Fred Duncan clip really quickly before I get started with this video because so many people tag me in his posts or send me his posts asking me for my take, so I'll just play it right now.
The Olympic weightlift ones, typically people say, well, we use it for power, okay, which they don't want to define. But then you say, well, technically, if we're just going off power, just jumping has higher power ratings than Olympic lifting. Well, it's not just about power. It's also about, really high eccentric loading. Well, if we're going to talk about eccentric loading, we can talk about depth jumps and depth drops. We can even do trap bar jumps actually are going to exceed the eccentric loading. It's not just about the eccentric loading. It's actually about, and then they just start making up random fucking words and reasons for why they're using it. But I would need you to actually quantify what you're talking about. So tell me, this is what I'm looking to do with it. This is how I measure it. And this is how I tell if we're getting better. If you can't do that, I'm not saying that you can't use it. But you need to come up with a better argument than every time moving the goalposts every time I use your argument against you.
So Fred doesn't want to do a real live debate, which is fine. There's no need to keep pestering him about it. I'll just continue to give my takes on here. So no serious proponent of the Olympic lifts makes power central to their justification for why they're using them. He also makes the point that the pro Olympic lifting people don't want to define power, but there's only one definition of power. It's just a physics equation. It's force times velocity.
We're just going off power. Just jumping has higher power ratings than Olympic lifting.
Right, so power ratings isn't a thing. But I'll be charitable and concede that during some jumping activities, individuals will produce higher power outputs compared to when they're doing Olympic lifts with various loads on the bar. But unfortunately for Fred, the data is actually mixed on this, so it's just a wash. And none of the studies on this control for the individuals performing the Olympic lifts with a standard technique. It just reveals a major flaw in his argument because he just accepts the conclusion section of studies without any further analysis. And if he wants to use power output or rate of force development to justify anything, and he claims in the comments that you shouldn't be using means to train these qualities if they're not maximally stimulated, then he shouldn't prescribe jumps in his training either because a mid-thigh clean pull beats out jumps in the 4 following categories: peak force, time to peak force, peak rate of force development, and time to peak rate of force development. Oh, it's not just about power, it's about really high eccentric loading. Would Fred concede that there's value in moving from triple extension to triple flexion, and not only that, but doing it to actually yield an external body of mass? Sure, the eccentric force as measured by a force plate may be higher doing an altitude drop, but there's no external load, and the joints of the lower body are not required to move from one end range to the other end range in a matter of milliseconds. Fred may classify as what I'm saying right now as making up random fucking words. This qualitative analysis of the lifts absolutely make them unique and nothing can compare to them. What about the repeatability of rate of force development and power development under various loads and stressors? This repeatability at the level of reflexes at the spinal cord. This occurs with the Olympic lifts, this does not occur with jumping. And it doesn't even occur with repeated plyos like consecutive broad jumps or a triple jump or bounding or things like that. What's interesting is that as he is strawmanning the pro Olympic lifting side, he lists 2 potential arguments, power and eccentric loading. And by doing so, he's conceding that the Olympic lifts train more than just one quality at a time. He sees this as a bug, not a feature. That's why he always says you can't ride 2 horses with one ass. But the fact that the Olympic lifts contain so many positive traits simultaneously is kind of what makes them so valuable. He says that the more qualities one can name as a justification for the Olympic lifts is just moving the goalpost. He kind of always just gives himself an out by saying, well, I'm not against using these means, it's all just GPP, it's all just the same to a non-barbell athlete. He'll make the point that he would say the same thing about a deadlift or a back squat or pretty much any other weight room exercise. If that were truly his position, there would be no point of him making these statements in the first place. Coming up with just one singular argument in favor of the Olympic lifts is not possible. The fact that you can come up with more than one is what makes them so valuable that Fred just doesn't understand because he doesn't understand the qualitative nature of the lifts. And we could analyze the lifts much further than I do in this video, but I'm just responding to Fred's Instagram post here. And if you do want my further analysis of the lifts and why I think they're valuable for team sport athletes, not just barbell athletes, check out my Haas Olympic ebook. That's just my short response to the Fred Duncan clip that everyone's sending me on Instagram. So that's all I got for the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.